Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Draft Countdown Podcast. I'm your co-host, Brian Bosarge. As always, my co-host, Shane P. Hallam. Shane, we are 224 days, 22 hours, 59 minutes, and 41 seconds away from the 2023 NFL Draft.
We are. We had an exciting week, a week full of upsets. We both had some interesting games on our docket, so I'm excited to talk about them. And, Brian, I held back. I thought about maybe waving the terrible towel at the start as we came in, but I thought, I want to be a little respectful to you this week, so I decided not to.
I was unaware the NFL started playing last week, Shane. To be honest, I did not know that was an event that took place.
But, look, anytime the Steelers or Bengals lose, we can just ignore it. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, we'll do that. We will probably briefly touch on the NFL in a little bit, but I want to ask anybody who is in the chat or following along on Twitter or in our Discord, which the Discord link is in the comment section here. Ask us a question. We will answer those later on in the episode, and here's the Discord link there. Actually, I don't know if that does any good or not because I don't think you can click it. So,
but anyway, type it in. It'll be fun.
Yeah, there you go. Join the Discord. You can do that directly from the homepage of draftcountdown.com as well. But, Shane, some headlines this week. You briefly touched on the upsets in college football, and I feel like, I started writing about the Sun Belt Conference every Saturday. It's motivated these guys, and the Sun Belt has just gone all crazy. 3 upsets over, I guess Notre Dame's technically not a Power 5 team, but big programs there. Marshall goes into South Bend and beats Notre Dame. Not just sneak by, they beat them. Appalachian State, you can't say anything other than they beat them up. 42 minutes of time of possession in that game for App State over the Aggies in the win there. And then Georgia Southern wins a shootout at Nebraska, gets Scott Frost fired, which, they got him fired sooner. Actually, they did him a favor and got him another $7.5 million because he would have, if he got fired in 3 weeks, his buyout would have went down. So, but a crazy week for the Sun Belt. And, fun games. And Alabama almost got beat.
Oof. That game had me on the edge of my seat, man. Bryce Young just ice cold veins in that last play, getting the yardage he needed. But yeah, Notre Dame going down surprised me after Ohio State. They played Ohio State so tough. I was like, okay, they have a good defense at least. They can run the football. I think they just lost all the gas, I guess, in that game and didn't have it for Marshall. Tyler Buckner, the quarterback, gets hurt. So we'll see what happens with Notre Dame moving forward. But and Marshall, Rasheen Ali, their running back, he just came back. He's coming back this week. He didn't even play. So they have one of the top 10 running backs in the college football, didn't even play, and they beat Notre Dame. It's so wild to me.
Now, their running back now, which I don't think we have on our watch list, but was like an Uber driver or something a couple of years or last year or whatever. And then, but was a former 5-star recruit. Coburn is this? I feel like that's
yeah. Colin LeBourne, running back from LeBourne. Yeah, I remember watching him in high school. Like he was a monster in high school. Went to Florida State and had some different issues. So I think he's one of those rare year 7 guys, if I'm not mistaken.
Not as rare as you think.
Yeah, as you when you do a watch list, right? 2017 recruiting class, is that?
Yeah,
it's 7. Yeah, so yeah. Well, we might have to add him in there. I don't know if he'll make it in the NFL, but he's played well.
No, 2016 recruiting class.
Okay, well, 2017 only 6 years.
Yeah, 2017 or 6-year players. Yeah,
all right, not bad.
Yeah, so it was a great week for the Sun Belt Conference. Congrats to those teams that pulled off the wins, and look forward to watching a lot more Sun Belt football throughout the season. Like I said, I've started writing about them almost every Saturday now. So check that out. You can check that out coming up this Saturday. I'll be writing about the players from Southern Miss and their loss to Miami. Several injuries this week to talk about, Shane, involving some draft prospects. It was announced that Arizona State defensive lineman Jermaine Lowell, he transferred from Arizona State to Louisville, will miss the season. He will not play. Arkansas safety Jalen Catalon has injured his other shoulder now and will miss the season. He missed most of last year with a injury to his other shoulder. And a pair of South Carolina players, Mo Kaba, an emerging linebacker prospect, tore his ACL in the game against Arkansas. And Jordan Strawn, the Georgia State edge rusher transfer from a couple of years ago, 6th-year player, also tore his ACL in the game against Arkansas and will miss the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's football. It happens, but you hate to see players that may have gotten drafted or may have been in the NFL get injured. Hopefully with some of the eligibility stuff, a lot of these guys can go back to school if they want and, kind of try again. But I'd like to see just like no injury. If I could wave my magic wand for anything in football, it'd just be like end injuries. And just, I think it'd be so great.
I guess the biggest of those players is going to be Catalan, right? As far as,
yeah.
So
I thought he maybe had a first round shot with a good year. Now what do you do when you're, especially at the safety position, that can really hurt. He's a 4th-year guy, so you really want to go back for a 5th year. I think it's going to be a tough decision.
So we each watched, I think, 7 games this week, and there was some good players we watched this week, Shane. So we'll both look at an offense and a defensive player, and I'll start on offense. And I know you've been a big fan of Alabama running back Jahmyr Gibbs, and you tweeted out during the game that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to catch 80 balls in the NFL. And I wrote down in my notes, I think he's the best receiving prospect at running back that I've watched since David Johnson from Northern Iowa a few years ago. I was a huge fan of him. And I love running backs that catch the football. That's one of my top go-to things when I'm rating running backs. Do they catch the football? How well are they running routes? Can they pass block? And it's almost like, how do they run the ball? It almost goes an afterthought to me sometimes, and I have to stop myself. But Gibbs, he can do that too. And he didn't put up big running numbers against Texas, but catching the football, he was a stud. And I can't wait to see more of him. I moved him up a little bit. I think I moved him up to RB3 on my board after this game.
No, I mean, it's solid. I'm obviously a big fan. He's my RB2. I think the kind of the weight and role was the only question. I don't know if he can be a bell cow guy, but yeah, he was Georgia Tech. They did use him that way. So yeah, catching the ball, man, he is smooth. You could just line him up a receiver. I'm with you. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's tremendous. My offensive player, I'm top player in my article was Cedric Tillman, the wide receiver from Tennessee. We talked about him a little bit last week. I think there's starting to be a little bit of hype. He had a lot of production last year with Hendon Hooker, Tennessee. So I want to watch him because Pitt has a good defense. They have a good defensive line. So some of the passes Hooker threw weren't, completely on target. He had to rush it a little bit. They have probably a draftable safety, some corners that are stepping in there pretty athletic. And Cedric Tillman just made the Pitt secondary look ridiculous. Hit 9 catches, 162 yards. He had a step oftentimes on some of these corners. Like a guy of his size, for 6'2", over 210. I mean, just the explosiveness off the line and some of the quick feet in his routes really surprised me. He just gets open really well for his size. So, I was pretty surprised by that. He was a player I watched before and that I liked, but I didn't expect this. So, he listed 6'3", 215. He moved up to my number 6 receiver in the class, which is, that's pretty good. We'll see if it sticks, but he's 5th-year player. Tennessee's had a couple guys drafted, so I think Cedric Tillman's going to be a good one.
Yeah, he's a guy I haven't really watched yet. So at some point I'll get a Tennessee game in front of my eyeballs, and then I'll probably have a similar infatuation with Cedric Tillman. My best defensive player this week didn't even play defense, I don't think, last year. And we kind of talked about him a little bit as a week ago as well, is Derek Parrish, the former tight end fullback from Houston, now an edge rusher, and pretty much went unblocked for the most part in their game against Texas Tech. 4 sacks in the game for Parrish, 6 tackles for loss, 8 tackles total. Just a madman there. Just completely abusing the tackles for Texas Tech in that game. Going to be undersized, about 6'2". I think he's 245. So he's going to have to be an NFL linebacker probably. I don't think he's going to be a defensive end at the next level. But I thought he could have – I think he could end up going in the similar draft range in that 4th, 5th round area and have an impact similar to what Max Crosby's had with the Raiders. Just that kind of tenacity and speed around the edge to impact plays. But like I said, it's not something he's going to be able to do every down.
Yeah, I need to watch him. I mean, we had him listed at both positions in our, before because, I hadn't even seen that. So that conversion to have that type of player, and what the NFL likes, oftentimes he's only played the position 1 or 2 years, but have the athletic ability and the tenacity, like that, they will draft you high. So that's a good one. My defensive player, it's tough to pick because I think there were a couple good ones. But I'm going to go with a guy, and you may have mentioned him last week, but I know he was in your article from week 1, and that's Tyler Lacey, the defensive lineman from Oklahoma State. Blew me away against Arizona State. Very similar stat line to week 1. He had a sack, like clean penetration. He's big and he can move. He's explosive, and you could see Arizona State's interior line not understanding how to block him early, and so he was getting penetration. They got better as time went on, but even in the run game, he was driving some of these linemen backwards, filling gaps, two-gapping. Like, not a player I really had on my list before the season. Like, I got to check out Tyler Lacey from Oklahoma State. But after your article and then watching him again, I'm like, man, this guy's really good, and just sailing up my board here.
He has spurts where he just takes over on the inside, and it's a rare quality for an interior defensive lineman to be able to do that. So it was eye-opening to me, and then obviously eye-opening to you. Tyler Lacey, Oklahoma State. Everybody needs to keep an eye out for him going forward. But we've talked about some pass rushers here, Shane. So that's going to bring us to our debate of this week, and we're going to look at the top 5 edge rushers available to date for the 2023 NFL Draft. As always, this is a fluid list, but we find ourselves, like last week, Shane, in agreement on 1 through 4. So,
man, look, we're
not lockstep like this last year, Shane. We've had a year together now. We're thinking alike. But number 1 here is no doubt about it. I think we both agree he's probably going to go bell to bell here as the number 1 overall prospect, barring injury. Not dissimilar from Kayvon Thibodeau for me a year ago. But that's Will Anderson, the edge rusher from Alabama. Now, you did mention this week he has some warts. Not a perfect prospect by any means. But there's just things he does on that field, man, that you don't see often at all. It's rare skill set from Will Anderson.
It is just the explosiveness, the way that he bends is unlike anything that I've seen from a pass rusher. Since I started scouting, like he can just lean around these offensive linemen and doesn't give up much ground. He doesn't need a wide angle to do it. So he gets to the quarterback so quickly. It's just crazy to me. I think he's going to go top 5. I think number 1 overall is within play if the team doesn't need a quarterback, because you don't get these type of pass rushers all that often. I have an article coming out this week. Like, is he a generational talent? And kind of talking about generational talents and Will Anderson. Like, is he on that level? I won't spoil it, but I think, he's not as big as a Chase Young or the Bosas, but he plays like it. And I think that's that's pretty huge, especially against these SEC. Like he's played against NFL linemen and he's dominated them, and that's what you want to see.
That's coming out Friday for everybody listening at draftcountdown.com. Shane's going to talk about Will Anderson there. Number 2 for both of us on our list is Georgia edge rusher Nolan Smith. And you would not think that we would be sitting here talking about Georgia edge rushers again after last year when they have 3 players from that defensive line drafted in the first round, including the number 1 overall pick, Trayvon Walker. But you could have heard some people make that argument last year that Nolan Smith might have been the best pass rusher of all of them.
I think he was the most consistent last season from, start of the season to the finish. He got some opportunities there, mid-season to start and didn't look back. Like he was a former number 1 overall recruit. I mean, he is athletically super gifted. I was a little disappointed in the Oregon game this year. I thought he struggled a bit. The Oregon kind of moved a lot of what they were doing away from him, I think on purpose. But even so, I think last year shows you just the pass rushing, the explosive ability, and he's someone that has a couple different moves. That's what he really didn't have before last season. He never could get on the field because he would just try to go. He'd just try to use his athleticism. Now he's starting to gain strength. Last year, I think the sky's the limit. I hope to see him more involved in this defense here as Georgia gets into the SEC schedule.
Yeah, I agree. And you'll see him this week. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I won't see him because I'll be driving. We'll also talk about that. Number 3 for both of us on this list is Clemson edge rusher Myles Murphy, who I was called out upon during our live draft coverage on day 3 when I had no idea who Myles Murphy was. Did not have a clue. I have since watched him, and unlike Will Anderson and even Nolan Smith, Myles Murphy has that prototypical NFL defensive end size at 6'5", 275. He's listed, and he's also got the power that you look for. But he can get around that edge too, and plays very well in the run game as well. Maybe one of the more well-rounded guys here. In the top 5 picks, but Myles Murphy, lot to like there if he didn't play at Clemson.
Yeah, and he's just another tie-end recruit, so he has the athleticism. He's big. I think he's listed 275, which for an edge rusher, you're like, is that too big? He might kind of be a little bit of that tweener. Do you put him inside? Do you move him around the line? I think NFL defenses now are so complex that you can utilize those kind of players. Like you said, he's well-rounded because he has the athleticism. He has the brute strength as well. He is, you watch him, he just jumps off the film, even around a lot of good players. I'm hoping, that we can kind of see him play a little bit more here. I think he's been banged up here and there this season so far. So I'm hopeful we'll get some Myles Murphy here very soon.
Number 4 for both of us on our list is a guy I think we could have easily seen come out last year and been a first-round pick maybe is Notre Dame's Isaiah Foskey. He's also got good size, listed at 6'5", 260. And I know Scott, if he's listening, he'll be happy. We've brought up Notre Dame in a well-to-do fashion instead of talking about them losing to Marshall like we did earlier. But what's there to like about Isaiah Foskey?
Well, I think he plays really smart. They have him stand up sometimes at 265. He gets up the speed real quick. He gets a full head of steam. And he definitely knows the opposing linemen, what their tendencies are, what their weaknesses are. You can see him do different things every week last year. That's what I was impressed with. I'm not sure he's the best athlete or going to be this dominant pass rusher, but he sets the edge really well. He plays smart. He did struggle against Ohio State up against Paris Johnson. I thought it was not his best game. I didn't think he was awful. But so that's my one fear with him is the upside. But I think Isaiah Foskey is going to be one of those players that plays in the NFL for a long time and starts and has good stats and, maybe never is the all pro that you want.
And so we finally have some differing opinions here. Number 5 for you is another one of the smaller. I hesitate to say smaller, but not your prototypical size defensive end. But it's B.J. Ogilari from LSU, third-year player, 6'3", 245. Younger brother, I assume he's younger brother of Azeez Ojulari, who's I think entering his second year in the NFL now.
Yeah, I just think BJ Ojolari's like closing speed and athleticism is excellent. He was in the backfield against Florida State. He didn't get a sack, but he was back there. He was pressuring Jordan Travis and moving him around. Didn't play this past week. But I mean, last season as a true second year sophomore, I was just blown away. Like, man, this dude is really, really good. And in that bowl game, he was, if you remember, LSU no one played, and BJ Ojolari played, and he was like the only good defender on the team. He was trying to do everything. He got a sack. He was chasing Skylar Thompson around. He has a pretty good motor, and the closing speed just wows me. So I think from a pass rush standpoint, I think there are players who are better than him, right? From everything else. But I think from a pass rush standpoint, I'm not sure there's anyone else I'd put above him outside my top 5.
And he's one I'm looking forward to watching at some point. I haven't really put my eyes on him just yet. A guy who I put my eyes on this week wasn't on my schedule, but I was like, you know what? I can squeeze this in. And so I squeezed in the UTSA Army game this week, and I moved this guy all the way up to edge 5 for me, and that's Army Andre Carter II. I was blown away by what I saw from this guy. And you don't really see players like this at service academies. Not anymore, anyway. And this guy's 6'7", 260, but moves like he's 20, 25 pounds lighter. And it's just, they stand him up, and he looks more comfortable standing up, which is the crazy part to me. You would think, a guy that size would be much more comfortable hand on the ground, but no, this guy looks better standing up than he does. He can move in space. He can cover. I mean, it's amazing to me that this guy, I don't know, did he have a late growth spurt or something? I'm not sure how this worked out. Like, how did he not end up at like a non-service academy? I don't know how this worked out, but I was blown away by his talent. 2 sacks against UTSA. I believe he had a couple sacks in their week 1 game as well. Just a stud, and I can't wait to watch more of him this season.
Yeah, he is super interesting. Like you said, the size is intriguing for sure. And I'm circling October 8th on my calendar because last year against Wake Forest, I didn't think he played well. It's like the one game I'm like, okay, like this is where you really get to see him shine. But the UTSA game, man, he was on fire. that was a good one for you to watch. He had a couple sacks in that game. Just he can take over a game like that. It's wild.
Yeah, like I said, I do they play Wake again on the 8th?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll
So
yeah, I have to see what the rest of their schedule looks like. I'm going to try to find some strategic, because all their games are televised, so it's very easy to find. But it's I have to find some more specific. This one just happened to pop up, and I was like, okay, I've got time. But yeah, what a player! Can't wait to see more Andre Carter. So the schedule is going to be a little different this week, Shane, and next week for that matter. As I have decided to take a vacation in the middle of football season, and I will be at the wonderful Walt Disney World in Orlando for the next 8 days, starting on Saturday. So I am going to DVR a couple of games each weekend so I can, have some stuff to talk about when I get back. But we're going to talk about next week's podcast at the end of the show. So 7 games from you, 2 games from me this week, and I think it's going to line up similar next week as well. But we're going to start with this is Friday night on ESPN at 6:30. Florida State and Louisville. I've watched Louisville twice now. This will be your first time, but I believe the first time we've talked about Florida State this year, and I'm anxious to see if we can see any progression from Jordan Travis, the quarterback position. That's a guy looking forward to seeing if you see anything in this week. And Jared Verse, obviously, you talked about him already, the Albany transfer. So those are a couple players to see. Matter of fact, Jared Verse against Trevor Reed might be a good matchup, the Louisville offensive tackle to look forward to this week. And hopefully Malik Cunningham plays better for you than he has for me the last 2 weeks because he has been awful.
I'm not sure if he will, but no, I mean, look, after Jared Verse week 1, I'm excited for that. And Louisville has a couple guys in the secondary. Control Clark is pretty good. I'm interested in him. And one guy that I do really want to watch is Tyler Hudson, the receiver, transferred to Louisville from Central Arkansas. I had him on my radar coming into the year, so I want to see if he's an NFL guy. I think this will be a good game. And Friday night, I always need something to watch, so this will be good.
Yeah, Friday night I'll be packing and trying to go to sleep. I will not be watching any games Friday night. Saturday morning, a game I would have watched if I were not traveling, much to my chagrin. But hey, maybe I will be saved from this one after the physical toll that South Carolina took last week against Arkansas. Not going to get any better when they host Georgia this week, 11 a.m. on ESPN. But there is one South Carolina player that I think you will be happy to hear is coming on like gangbusters, and that's Juice Wells, the James Madison transfer. 8 catches last week for 180. He leads the SEC in receiving yards through 2 weeks. And also your man Marshawn Lloyd has started to – looks like he's back to full health, Shane, the third-year running back for the Gamecocks. But I don't know what's going to happen with him against Georgia this week. Probably not good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough, and I am excited to see these weapons for South Carolina. I mean, and you introduced me to Jaheim Bell last year. For some reason, he's just been running the football. Like, can you throw to him a little bit more? Like, might help against Georgia.
He had no targets last week, but had 5 carries. He's a tight end. Throw him the.
And that would be what I would want to do against Georgia. I feel like Alabama had success with Camelatu last year, but Georgia has a ton of players. Talk Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter's their defensive lineman's probably going to be a top 5 pick. And I'm even interested to just see the running backs a little bit because Kenny McIntosh is kind of taking that James Cook role and looks excellent in that role. And then Kendall Milton, the another running back that's kind of that straightforward, more traditional Georgia running back. That's super intriguing. They have some offensive linemen that have a shot to get drafted. It's just Georgia again. There's just so many players that could get drafted here, hoping to have them stand out.
I'm going to bring this up, but I feel like because it has been in the Twitterverse here the last couple of weeks, Senior Bowl Executive Director Jim Nagy has beaten that drum for Stetson Bennett IV as a NFL prospect quarterback. I'm not buying it.
Week one was good. Week 1, he looked like an NFL quarterback. I don't know if it's going to last. We'll see. But Oregon's no slouch. I mean, that was a good team he played against. So he looked a lot better. Last year, I'm with you. Last year, I was like, no way. But he could be AJ McCarron. He could
Cam
be.
Smith may not play this week, by the way.
Oh, man.
As he left the game injured against Arkansas. I think they're keeping that one close to the vest and not announcing that he's not going to play. But
it's the corner from South Carolina, potential first-round pick. Yikes.
And speaking of prospects that probably should have came out last year, wide receiver Josh Vann through 2 games, no catches, no targets against Arkansas.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Zach Pickens play at least last week.
Yes, and he was at 12 tackles.
All right, excellent. That's good.
Probably because they ran a lot.
Makes sense.
Yeah. One of the games I am recording this week to watch when I get back is 11 a.m. on the Big Ten Network, Western Kentucky at Indiana. And the rare D2 to FBS transfer quarterback Austin Reed coming up from the University of West Florida, where he had a lot of success and has had success thus far in the 2022 season, going against Indiana. And I am a fan of their corner, Taiwan Mullen, as well as a couple of other guys on their team. So anxious to just kind of watch that one a little bit when I get back.
No, I think it's a good one. Tywone Mullen, Jalen Williams, their other corners, not bad. Matthew Bedford, the left tackle, I believe, for Indiana, solid. And it seems like Joshua Simon is back for Western Kentucky, their tight end, who has been
missed
productive.
all last season.
So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about him too.
And is that a Western Michigan transfer wide receiver, Jalen Hall? Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
2:30 on Fox on Saturday, BYU at Oregon. Shane, you will be watching this one. I watched Oregon in week 1 against Georgia. Officially, you watched it as well, also, obviously. But and I've also watched BYU. So BYU was without Gunnar Romney and Puka Nakua, their other wide receiver, who looked really good in their first game. So anxious to see if they play. Any doubt in your mind that Jaron Hall's the better of the two quarterbacks in this game?
No, I mean,
it's not even close, right?
I think I couldn't even do the math quick enough in my rankings to tell the difference between Jaron Hall, and Bo Nix. It's pretty bad. It's like 40 spots.
Yeah.
So
some good linebackers in this game as well. Oregon's got a handful with Noah Sewell and Justin Flo and Masafuna. 3 good linebackers there. BYU with Peyton Wilgar also as well. So good linebacker play in this game.
I think it's going to be a really close game. I think these teams match up really well. And Justin Flo had a good game against Georgia. He's maybe finally coming into his own. He has that NFL athleticism. And I really like Oregon's offensive line. And they have some decent offensive linemen, TJ Bass, the guard, Alex Forsythe, the center. So should be good.
2:30 on ABC, you'll be watching Mississippi at Georgia Tech. A couple of guys from Georgia Tech, maybe. I didn't see it with Jeff Sims when I was watching their game against Clemson. I'm not seeing much there as far as the NFL prospects go. But for the Rebels there, Zach Evans, Ulysses Bentley, the 4th at running back, both of those guys are draftable players at the running back. And, Evans could be a top 5 running back in this class as well. So, those guys.
Yeah, I mean, transfer from TCU, it's a better opportunity. I've actually bumped him down my rankings a little bit this week, but I think he's still a heck of a player, potential first-round running back, probably second. Mississippi has some good interior linemen. I love Nick Broker's my top guard, and Jeremy James, their other interior lineman, who I think is playing center now, perhaps. I could be wrong there, but I have him rated pretty highly. And then for Georgia Tech, Keon White is a player I liked early, and then he kind of did nothing. And then he had 2 sacks against Clemson. He abused their freshman offensive tackle, had a sack last week. So definitely a guy I want to watch to see, can he keep this going against Mississippi with a better offensive line? I think the best they played.
I have to ask this because we had a couple instances where you picked the wrong games. But Missouri State at Arkansas, 6 p.m. on SEC Network Plus. Is this one of them cases?
This is not. I like Montre Braswell, the corner from Missouri State, and okay. I haven't really watched. I haven't really watched Arkansas yet, so I don't know. I'll watch it and see what happens.
Okay, just making sure, Shane.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Look, it's worth
Texas Tech last year. We just want to clarify. I can tell you this: it would not shock me if all 5 offensive line or 4 of the the 4 draft eligible offensive linemen for Arkansas if they were all drafted. And I think Ricky Stromberg is top 100 pick.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Big fan of there. And I know he's not draft eligible this year, but I was made aware of the presence of Raheem Sanders last week. And I don't know how you call a 240-pound running back rocket, but here we are. And that guy is a stud, man. And I don't know what the rest of the running back class looks like for 2024, but he's got to be up there high.
I mean, I think he's in competition with Travion Henderson from Ohio State and Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. I think those are the big 3 for next year's class. So another good running back class potentially at the top. I'm interested to see his linemen because I haven't really watched their interior linemen outside of Stromberg too much for Arkansas. So I'll put a little focus on some of those in this game for sure.
Well, this might not be the game to.
I guess that's true.
To see the best of that. They were without safety Miles Slusher last week. I'm not sure if he's going to make it back for this week or not. We talked about Catalan being out, but Latavius Brini, the Georgia transfer, filled in nicely in that secondary for them last week. Also came away impressed with Drew Sanders, the edge rusher from Arkansas. I believe he's an Alabama transfer. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. He's a good player.
Really, really good. The other game I'm watching or recording this week to watch later, SMU at Maryland, 6:30 p.m. on FS1. And I'm a big fan of the Maryland receiving corps. Obviously, I love Dante Demas from last year before the injury. Jacob Copeland, a transfer from Florida, I think, is a solid player as well. And Raheem Jarrett is a chance to be could work his way into the first round conversation. But their linebacker, Ruben Hippolyte, I'm way higher on him than most. I think I've got him at linebacker 3 right now. Big fan of his from watching them play last year. So anxious to get my first look at Maryland this year. And SMU as well has got players, I like. Tanner Mordecai, I think, look good. The games I watched of them a year ago, the quarterback for SMU. Rashee Rice could be that sneaky top 100 wide receiver there that comes down to the Senior Bowl and just blows everybody away. Could be that type of player. And, a couple other players for SMU that aren't bad as well.
Yeah, their defensive lineman Elijah Chapman, I think, has a shot to get drafted. It's funny, Maryland, they have all these good receivers, talking about Jarrett and Copeland, Dante Demas, but Jayshon Jones is their leading receiver right now, another draft-eligible receiver. So they're just, stacked and are picking people apart. But, probably the highlight for Maryland is Jalen Duncan, their offensive tackle, just this, super athletic, big player who, pretty raw. Last year, there were games, especially early on, where if you watch him, you're oof, it's rough. But if you watch some of the later games, he really, really improved. And I think so far this season has played really well. Played well, it's Charlotte and Buffalo, but played well. So we'll see if that sticks against SMU.
8 p.m. on ESPN. And Shane, if you are recording this on your DVR, also record whatever's on ESPN News at 8 o'clock. Because the ESPN windows for this one, they have another game that kicks off at 5. Will in no way be over by 8 o'clock. So go ahead and set ESPN News to record at 8 p.m. if you want to see the entire game. But I watched Miami last week against Southern Miss. So this is obviously a much bigger test for them. But A&M lost last week to App State, as we talked about earlier. So how are they going to react? And why can't they get good quarterback play? Haynes King has struggled these first 2 weeks to get anything going. Devin Achane last week had a kick return for touchdown for A&M. So just I don't know, man. Tyler Van Dyke, I didn't think looked that great last week against Southern Miss either. He had some mechanical issues. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with with him, where he is not consistent. He's not throwing the ball the same way every time. And he's going to have to do it here because Texas A&M, I know they lost last week, but like they have some good players. I don't think they're going to lay down, especially defensively. Jalen Jones, their corner, Antonio Johnson, their safety. Johnson's a potential first-round pick. Jones a potential top 100 pick. Really good. And they have a decent offensive line. I think they're kind of missing that big running back, right? Devin Achane is a nice, he is explosive. He could be a top 100 guy just based off speed, one of those weapon types. But they haven't, they're not using any type of bigger running back in the middle. So I'm interested to see. I mean, Miami is interesting because I think they have a lot of like good players, but not many great players. We've talked about their Zion Nelson, their offensive tackle. I thought played kind of poorly last season. And so I think they have some younger guys that aren't even draft eligible. They're probably better than a lot of the players out here. So this will be a good test. There's a lot of guys I want to see in this game.
Finally, late night Saturday, 10 p.m. on Fox Sports 1, North Dakota State at Arizona. North Dakota State is favored by 1 point on the road as an FCS team at a Power 5 team in Arizona. And I got to say, after watching Arizona last week against Mississippi State, which was one of the sloppiest played football games I've ever seen in my life, I wouldn't be surprised if North Dakota State gets the Duke here. But yeah, Jaden DeLaura, it was just all over the place last week. But Arizona's got some good pass rushers. Jalen Harris, Hunter Eccles, a couple of good players there. Christian Rowland Wallace, solid at the corner spot. But I think this is more for you and some of these North Dakota State players, right? And fullback Hunter Lupke, tight end Noah Gendorf. And Cody Mouch, the offensive tackle as well. Some really good players for the Bison.
Yeah, I think this Bison team's going to have a couple players in the NFL. One or two get drafted. I like Noah Gendorf I was talking about last year. He did end up not declaring. He's probably a late round pick, but I think he can come out and be a contributor in the NFL. I do like some Arizona guys. Jordan Morgan, their offensive tackle, I liked him a lot last year, so I wanted to see him play against Cody Mauch. And Jacob Cowing, their receiver who transferred from UTEP, man, I mean, he has NFL athletic ability. He's the one guy holding this offense together. I feel like he has four touchdowns. I think that's every passing touchdown that they've had. No, it's 4 out of the 5. So I mean, he is the guy, and if they win, it's going to be on Jacob Cowing's back. He's a name to know if you don't.
I can tell you that if they wrote a book on how not to play a football game, that game that I watched last week would have been top 5 on the teaching tape there. So are you buying North Dakota State continuing their FBS winning streak here?
Yes, I think so. I think DeLaura is just not good enough, and North Dakota State's they're just gonna grind it down and win by like a field goal, I think. I can't pick them for the lock of the week.
Not for the lock of the week.
I think they win, though.
Speaking of lock of the week, Shane, congrats. You're on the board. Not that you didn't have to sweat it out.
Oh, my goodness.
But Tennessee wins it in overtime by 7, covers the 6.5. So Shane now 1-2, where I am now 3-0 after Duke gets the outright win, being a 10-point dog last week. So yeah, I am 3-0, and this week I just talked up how great Maryland was. Shane, you heard all that, right? How great all these offensive weapons from Maryland.
So you're picking Maryland, right?
SMU.
Oh,
the road as a road dog, 2.5-point underdogs. I think SMU wins this one outright on the road.
Wow. I actually considered taking Maryland in this game. So we've never done that. I don't think we've ever gone against each other in lock of the week, but I considered it. I did not do that.
I didn't like this one, by the way. I am not, despite the gravitas in my voice. I am not convinced.
It could happen though. Like it could happen. I could see SMU's offense just lighten it up. So
who is your lock of the week this week, Shane?
I'm going to the Big Ten. Big Ten team to lose here because it's been rough to an ACC team, and I'm taking Syracuse -1.5 at home against Purdue. I think Purdue's offense, Charlie Jones, pretty good, but I think Syracuse, man, your boy Sean Tucker has looked really good. I think Garrett Schrader can run around a little bit. I think Purdue's weak this year and ripe for the taking. So I'm going Syracuse to win this one. We'll see what happens.
New OC for the Orange. Garrett Schrader's been something else for them this year on these first two games. I like it. Syracuse -1.5 here. These odds, by the way, provided to us by FanDuel. You can go to FanDuel.com and get those odds. Shane, we answered a lot of questions last week. We don't have a lot of questions this week, so that's okay. We went long last week, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But the one question we do have in the Draft Countdown Discord is from our colleague Miranda, who would like to know our thoughts on Virginia Tech's football program moving forward, and if we ever think they'll turn this ship around.
Ooh. I mean, look, they lost Old Dominion, which was pretty sad, but they got the win against Boston College last week. I think the problem with Virginia Tech, right back in the Michael Vick days, I remember Virginia Tech was a perennial top 10 team, Big East, going to pick games with Larry Fitzgerald against Virginia Tech. Like they just haven't been able to recruit the way that they used to. Even the players that I thought last year were like good end up not going to the NFL and make mental mistakes. I don't think Virginia Tech's going to get to where they used to be, at least for a long time. Mostly because they can't get the quarterback play in there. They can't get the skill position play that they used to. There's no one on that team that like strikes fear into me. I think it's going to be a while. I think they're really going to need a coach to come in there and remake what the offense looks like and what the team looks like, try to win a little bit and bump up recruiting. They need someone that can recruit players, really.
Yeah, they've got to stop letting everybody come into the Tidewater area there and get the players that they used to get. And that's kind of the problem. Ohio State and Alabama and everybody's coming in there now, coming in their backyard and getting those guys. And you can apply the same logic to Virginia as well.
Mm-hmm. Rough year for them this year.
Yeah, they haven't been too good. But I guess the state of Virginia can just hang its hat on James Madison, who, despite not even having 85 scholarships, is beating the crap out of everybody to the point that they had a 10-minute fourth quarter in their game on Saturday.
Yeah, man, their receiver Chris Thornton is something else. No one can cover him. It's so wild. James Madison moving up and like actually doing really well is awesome.
Yeah. So that's it. Talked about it earlier. Final thoughts here. I will not be here on the podcast next week, as I will be at Disney's Hollywood Studios on Wednesday night next week. So, but yeah, we are leaving on Saturday morning very early and driving to Orlando from here. It's about an 8.5-hour drive. And we'll be down there until the following Sunday. So I will miss 2 weeks of college and NFL football. But hey, we're going to have a great time, as we always do, down at Disney. But next week, Shane, Nino Brown's going to be on here to join us. Nino's from
Toilets to Titles. That's where I know him from, and it's a fantasy football podcast. They have like a podcast every day. I've been on a ton. So Nino's a good guy. You'll love his accent. He has that strong Boston accent, so you don't get to hear that next week.
That will be a change from my strong Southern accent that we hear every week.
It'll be very different, but it'll be good. You know, loves country. He's a big Kentucky Will Levis fan, so we'll have to, talk about that, I guess.
Yeah, well, we will definitely have to do that. So the format should be similar, just not me next week. So
yeah, when I host, I'm gonna, when you come back, I'm gonna be like, Brian, please don't leave again. Just every time I have a co-host that leaves and I have to do the hosting, I'm like, this was not good. I'm not feeling good. So,
anything from you before we check out here, Shane?
No, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Draft Countdown. More subscribers, the better. Even if you don't use YouTube, like, it would be helpful to us. And yeah, just reach out, join the Discord, and reach out and hang out on game day. I should be able to hang out on Saturday and talk about the game. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, Dwayne asked a question quickly, and we'll get to that. Who do you think Nebraska will target to replace Scott Frost, or who should they target?
That's a good question. It's tough. I'm actually kind of interested to see how Mickey Joseph does. Like, I don't think Nebraska's going to be a team that's going to let him, stick around. But, he has some good experience with some good LSU receivers. I think he's a good coach. So I'm actually excited to see him coach a little bit and see if he can turn things around. I see, my problem with Nebraska is, I don't want to go too long, but my problem with Nebraska is, like, I don't know what level of coach they can target. Like, they're not going to get, Matt Campbell to leave Iowa State to go to Nebraska anymore. I just don't think they're at that level. I don't know what's the best option. Maybe is like Troy Calhoun, the Air Force coach, something like that. I don't know.
I tell you a guy I think they should target because he kind of runs a modern day version of what they used to run during the Tommy Frazier days, and that's Coastal Carolina's Jamie Chadwell. I think that offense and his style of basically, because he's not going to – at Nebraska, you're not going to get the 4- and 5-star guy, a lot of them. So you need a guy that can develop, and I think his style would fit that type of offense and maybe bring Nebraska back or give Nebraska fans a semblance of, the old days.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I don't know if he'd even go. Like I don't. Is that really the job that you want? I think it's also funny that we both picked like gimmick offenses. Like I picked the triple option coach, and you picked, the RPO coach. Like that's kind of what Nebraska needs is something to even.
They need a gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Shane mentioned everybody subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell, and all that good stuff. If you listen to us on audio, give us a 5-star review and tell your friends and all that good stuff. We need to get the word out about the podcast. On Twitter, you can follow me at Deep Fried Draft. You can follow Shane at Shane P. Hallam. You can follow Draft Countdown at Draft Countdown. And as always, everything you need to know in regards to the NFL draft, draftcountdown.com. Until next time, everybody, Shane, don't let the house burn down. Later.